Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hernandez.
Here.
Commissioner Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Dickerson.
Here.
Commissioner Blanco.
Here.
Commissioner Seifert.
Here. And has everyone had a chance to read the minutes from the February 6th? And do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of the February 6, 2019.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay. This time we're going to go on to the consent calendar. Public comment. How did I do it again? I did it again. At this time, we're going to go into public comment. Each member of the audience may address the commission on any subject within the commission's business. Each member of the audience and each subject is limited to discussion of 3 minutes or as otherwise directed. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Seeing no one, we're going to go on to the consent calendar. Do I have a, and before we start, item number 1, I may have a financial interest in this project, so I am going to recuse myself from that. We can pull item number 1 and then vote on the remainder. Item 2.
I'd like to go ahead and move that we approve the consent calendar, item number 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then how do I handle, do I have to leave the room?
For consent agenda item, you don't have to leave the room.
Okay, so would someone else like to talk about that?
Yes, if we can move on to consent calendar number 1. Do I have any comment? If not, if I can get a motion.
I move.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
Thank you. This time we're going to move on to the public hearings. The first item up tonight is the item number 3, the Kia permit amendment at 2175 South Bradley Road. May we hear from staff, please?
Thank you, Commissioner Chair Seifert. My name is Carol Duzenhenny, and I will be presenting the project for Kia at 2175 South Bradley Road. The site is located in the Crossroads Auto Center at the intersection of South Bradley Road and Southside Parkway. The project is in a general commercial district with a planned development auto overlay in the Entrada Este specific plan. Just north of the site is Toyota. I'll get my pointer up here. Toyota is just north of the site. The Crossroads Shopping Center is to the east of the site, where you can see Home Depot is right here. Storage, etc., is to the south, and BMW and Volkswagen is to the west. Excuse me. The applicant proposes to remodel the exterior of the auto dealership building currently occupied by Honda of Santa Maria. Once Honda moves into their new site located to the north along Bradley Road, Kia of Santa Maria intends to occupy the newly vacated space. This is the proposed site plan, as can be seen here in yellow. There are 2 proposed changes to the site plan. One is the exterior and one is in the interior. As you can see here, a canopy over the main entrance will be removed, and the service lounge and brand wall, which is right here, service lounge is right there, will be remodeled to reflect Kia's marketing image. There will be no changes to the use, footprint of the building, site design, or landscaping. At this time, I'd like to pass along the materials board for the Commissioner's review. This was provided by the applicant. So seen on the screen is a view of the east elevation as seen from Bradley Road. Seen here at the top is the existing Honda dealership featuring a early California mission architectural style with parapets right along here and cornices up along the top of the roofline. On the top left, you can see is Splash and Dash Car Wash, which is a separate business that also shares the early California mission architecture with a clay tile roof and decorative cornices. Seen below is the proposed elevation showing the redesigned Kia facade in the contemporary modern architectural style, which is consistent with national auto dealerships entering the Santa Maria area. The parapets and cornices are seen here are proposed to be removed and are going to be replaced with new white metal panels to provide a straight modern roof line. The building is to be repainted to the charcoal slate color shown on the materials board provided by the applicant. The gray and white walls will be accented by the red signage you can see here with the Kia, which is consistent and in keeping with the Kia brand. As this contemporary modern architectural style deviates from the early California mission style required by the Entrada Este specific plan, the redesign requires review and approval by the Planning Commission, which is why it's here before you today. So moving along to the south, where the Kia car washes, the Splash and Dash car washes. At the February 7th study session, there was discussion among the commission about wanting to see the car wash blend architecturally with Kia and to be compatible with the modern design. Since the study session, the applicant has revised the elevations to repaint the existing cornices blue in keeping with the Splash and Dash brand. No other changes have been proposed for the car wash on this elevation. Seen here is a 3D rendering of the Kia entrance area. So here is a view of the existing conditions along the southern elevation of the building. That's along South Side Drive. This is the Splash and Dash car wash here. So as you can see, the facade is a desert sand color, and there are two clay tile tower elements, say that 5 times fast, right along here. The only changes of note shown on the proposed southern elevation are blue lighting fixtures. You can kind of see they're right here. They're kind of hard to point out. And repainted blue cornices along the top of the roof line here, below the tower feature. As shown on the materials board, the existing facade color is proposed to remain, as are the blue awning and the tower elements. So staff has received a letter that was forwarded to the Planning Commission from Lori Tamura of Urban Planning Concepts, who is one of the consultants working on the project. The letter requested the Planning Commission make 3 modifications to the conditions of approval as follows. The first is to modify condition 1, which is the project description, to change the date listed on the plan set. Staff recommends removing the date in the condition altogether to alleviate any confusion. The second request was to modify the language in condition 2 to reflect Planning Commission approval of the colors and materials as part of the project application. The proposed language additions are underlined as seen on the screen. Staff is agreeable to this added language as well. And finally, the applicant requests that condition number 3 be deleted in its entirety, as the applicant believes that the condition has been met by the revised elevations. And so the condition is no longer needed in their view. Staff has retained this condition for Planning Commission direction on the condition. As discussed in the study session, the commission desired to see the two businesses blend together more architecturally and wish to see the revised design at the hearing. If the commission is satisfied with the revised design, condition 3 may be removed. The review and approval of the design is up to the discretion of the Planning Commission. And with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission, by motion, approve permit amendment A 2018-0025 with the amendments to the conditions of approval as discussed. Staff is available for questions, and the applicant is present tonight as well to answer any questions. That concludes staff presentation.
Thank you very much. I did have a short discussion with Lori Tamura from Urban Planning Concepts on this project earlier today. Does anyone else have any expertise on this particular project?
I received an email from Lori Tamura as well.
I did receive an email as well from Lori.
As did I.
I also.
Thank you. We also have a letter here from UPC in regards to this. I think that's the letter that you were referring to. Do we have any questions to staff from the commission? Commissioner Dickerson.
Yeah, I have a question. Going back to item number 3, if you could, what is staff satisfied with the architectural design blend? It looks like it's pretty minimal, and I'm not sure that it blends terribly well in with the modern design. So I'm just kind of curious what additional suggestions staff might have had that would change that and give it a little bit more of a blended look.
Ryan Hostetter, Planning Manager. You're absolutely correct. As the elevations show currently, it really shows 2 separate operations, 2 separate businesses. So if it is the intent of the commission to make it flow more seamlessly, then potentially larger changes would need to happen. The tile roof being completely different from the flat, clean lines of the new Kia. Those are very different. So if the ultimate goal is to make this look seamless, then you would want to match those roof lines and the colors. If the goal, however, is to show 2 separate businesses and show the variety between the 2, then this would accomplish that.
Thank you.
Commissioners, questions? No. Okay, at this time I'm going to open the meeting up to the public. I don't see any speaker slips. Can we have the applicant?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jacob Weintraub. I'm the owner, the representative of the owner. I'm at address 2175 South Bradley. First, I want to thank Carol and the rest of the staff for doing a great presentation. Really well done. I'd also like to thank the chair and the commissioners for your time and review of the project. So I know that you all have UPC's letter. So that's good. I have an extra copy if anyone needs it. And then just to start, I'd like to say how excited we are as an owner group to be bringing a new manufacturer to town, because I know for some time now the city council and others in the city have been asking about when's the new manufacturer coming to town, when's the new manufacturer coming to town. So this is the first of, I hope, many more for the city's sake and for the people of the city. And so every manufacturer that comes has their own branding, has its own requirements for aesthetics, whether it be material, colors. And so we are happy that you like the new style of the Kia building. I know that we do. We think it represents the brand really, really well. And we hope that it sells lots of cars. So we met one of the conditions that were in a previous pencil draft, what had to do with the trees around the existing dealership, and we met with the city arborist to make sure that the existing trees were adequate. So which they were. So that's one example of how we've been working with staff and their recommendations to make sure that we're compliant with their recommendations. Another example of how staff recommendations made the project better was removing the cornice around the rest of the Kia building. So I'm not sure if you see the elevations to the north or the south, but previously we were planning to keep those cornices around that portion of the building, and we have removed them Yeah, that's, I think, the south elevation, but the north and the west elevation, sorry, previously had some cornices, and we removed those, even though that was an additional cost that we weren't considering initially. We thought from the suggestion of the staff that it would look better without those cornices. So we're backfilling Honda with Kia. That's what we're here tonight to discuss. I know that there has been some concern about Splash and Dash, but Splash and Dash has always been a separate business. So 15, 17 years ago, we developed this project as a Saturn building. And back then it was Saturn and Splash and Dash as a separate business operating under separate ownership. And when we moved Honda from Main Street out to the crossroads, it was Honda and Splash and Dash. And if you look at this elevation here, you can really see how, although the Kia is changing the elevations kind of slightly, I mean, from a massing standpoint, from a color scheme, it's getting a little darker, but it's really, you can see that it's very similar to the existing elevation, and we want to keep it that way from a branding of Splash and Dash. Splash and Dash works for the way it is. It does well with its own style and own look, and frankly, Kia doesn't really want a Kia car wash next to it. It doesn't want that. So by keeping it a separate color, keeping the same colors, keeping the different style, it really it makes it a separate business. And because it's not the same business, any costs that are to be incurred from the changing of that building would have to be on the onus of Splash and Dash, which they're not part of this application. It is really the Kia franchise that will be incurring the costs of these improvements and benefits of the improvements. And we do have Splash and Dash, one of the business partners here tonight, to answer your questions as well, if need be. But is there any questions for me at this time?
Yes, we have Commissioner Dickerson.
Just a quick question. I do understand the differentiation between the two businesses, but there is a commonality of ownership, isn't there?
I think that there's one partner who has ownership in both, but the other partner does not.
I see. And what's the percentage ownerships?
Ooh, I don't know if I can. Do you want to take that one?
I mean, are they a dominant owner or?
The dominant owner of, by the way, my name is Mark Betts. I'm the owner.
Up to the microphone, state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Mark Betts, and I'm the owner, one of the owners of the Splash and Dash Car Wash. We do have three owners in the Splash and Dash 55, 25, and 10. I am not the primary. And then of the Honda dealership, there is the one that's 55 is one of the primaries at the Honda dealership.
How about the Kia?
Of the Kia, I'm not sure the Kia ownership. Thirds, 33% across.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Please continue. Do you have anything else to add?
We're here for you, so thank you.
I do have a question. Excuse me. Sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
Still learning the process.
Yes, apparently I am too.
So a question on the roof line for the Kia facility. Does it match the existing roof line at the very top? Is that the peak? Is that the upper line of the existing roof line?
I'd have to see the details, but I think that you see where the storefront, the clear story storefront there is just to the right of the Honda sign on the existing, and then you can see it being remaining on the proposed elevation. I think that height there is the same as the existing height above those storefronts. Not that one, but that one.
Oh, that one.
That's what it appears to be.
Yeah.
That's what it appears to be.
I believe so.
Okay.
So the elevated parapets that are a little higher will be consistent, so that parapet line will change.
Thank you.
Going back to what Ryan was talking about, the clean lines.
Okay, so I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but is there any chance that car wash writing could be red? Does it have to be blue?
The writing car wash red?
Yeah. Does it have to be blue?
What I would want, the challenge is, and I get customers driving in every day thinking it's part of the dealership. And still, we've been open 16 years since 2003, and we're still fighting that battle. If we're going to be matching the Kia theme, color palette, whatever you want to call it, again, we're going right back into that challenge. And again, it's a separate business, and prefer not to have that. That's part of our brand, part of our logo, part of our scheme that we've had for 16 years. There's not a drop of red in it.
And that's consistent with all your other stores, right?
Yes, and we do have 2 other stores. Going to be a 3rd here, a 4th here pretty soon, and again, it's blue across the board.
So the answer would be no?
No, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't have any speaker slips on this particular item. So I'm going to close the public hearing and bring the discussion back to the commission. Commissioners. Commissioner Lopez.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Still from the study session to now, I think it should be more seamless than what it is. I know they're talking about branding. The 2 other stores are more rustic, Western, so that's a large departure from the branding of what this is. I know they're 2 separate entities, but I think the architectural, the more modern lines are a better fit, and I would go along with staff's recommendation on 3.
Thank you.
I believe we did.
Commissioner Hernandez?
Yes, I believe we did discuss this at a study session, and it is 2 separate businesses, and it is their company logo, because this was asked at the study session. So I can see that they want the blue and, you know, the changes that they want, because it is a separate business and they're trying to have a distinction. Now, the Kia logo is a requirement by the corporate brand that they have, and so I don't think they have much wiggle room there to make changes. And so it's, you know, I think it's passable the changes that they've asked for, I think, are not that significant in the scope of the entire project.
Thank you. Commissioner Dickerson?
I also feel like that the architecture needs to be more in line. The 2 buildings need to be more in line with which I understand the concept of branding, and I'm fine with the color scheme, the blue, but the problem I guess what I really have is the architectural design of the modern building, the modern facelift that you're going to be giving to the Kia building, which I think will be a real improvement, and then all of a sudden you have that hard stop at that mission style. I would really prefer to see the roof line on the car wash to be removed, and to produce more of a modern style, and that you're able to differentiate the 2 businesses via the signage and the color scheme of the signage. But architecturally, I just think that it's the 2 are terrible together. The new modern with that mission style, and so I would prefer not to see the differentiation on the two businesses be done via the architectural style. I'd prefer to see it done by the signage. So I support Commissioner Lopez, his suggestion that we maintain staff's recommendation of number 3, and preferably, like I said, remove that roof line.
Commissioner Blanco?
Excuse me. I also do agree with that assertion of Commissioner Lopez and Commissioner Dickerson in terms of the architecture. I definitely do understand the corporate branding. I think that makes a lot of sense to have that separate in terms of colors. You know, in my mind, I see the blue and I think car wash, so that makes a lot of sense. Red, I don't think car wash. So in that regard, that does make sense. I think it does stand out. The roof and that mission style definitely looks out of place. So from an aesthetic standpoint, it doesn't seem to match in my eyes as well. So I sort of concur with those statements. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm having a hard time with the blending. It's not really happening for me either. I can't even believe I said red. I don't enjoy the color red on signage, but I'm trying to figure out what you could do reasonably to change this so that it's a little more aesthetically pleasing. And I'm not sure what that answer is, but right now and I understand they're two businesses, but unfortunately you guys chose to have these businesses, zero property lines, butted together, and for all intents and purposes, to most people, they're like the same business. So I would like to see a little something different on the architecture. I'm not sure what it's going to take, but we did talk about this in study session. I don't know if ripping the roof off and making it flat is the answer. I don't know if maybe changing the style of the roofing, changing the color of the banding. I'm not exactly sure what it is that's going to make this thing look a little bit better, but I'm not seeing a big difference from the study session to this. I was hoping to see a little bit more where it blended a little better, in my own opinion. Thanks. So, at that point, is there any more discussion? Do we have a motion? Do we have a closer microphone?
Can I just clarify? So, staff's recommendation was yes on 1 and 2 and no on 3?
Staff left number 3 up to the discretion of the commission.
Okay, but 1 and 2 you were fine with 1 and 2, is that right?
Staff was fine with 1 and 2, yes.
All right.
1, we were just removing the date.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
because we have multiple sets here with multiple dates, so.
Then I'd like to go ahead and make a motion.
With the motion, Commissioner, Ryan Hostetter, if we can just clarify. So we're hearing with the architectural design, we have A and B. The cornices around the entire building fascia shall be removed, and the other is splash and dash shall be architecturally designed to blend with modern design. And we could even get more specific. We could say the roof line shall match, so that would include removal of the mission style tile roof and a flat clean line roof to match the Kia design. That would be a large change that would blend those together, is really that clean roof line to match Kia.
Oh, do I thought we brought it back to us. Okay.
So can the applicant, are you okay with those conditions?
Unfortunately not. No, we're not okay with changing the appearance or putting more money into the car wash, so we would have to ask for a continuance.
Okay.
I move that we continue this item to the next available date.
I'll second
that.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
The next available date would be April 3rd, and we have items on April 3rd.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you for your time.
You've got to follow the procedure. You've got to follow the procedure. Mr. Dickerson didn't want to follow the procedure. Can you believe that? No, I'm surprised by Mr. Dickerson's. I am astonished at You, out of all people. Thank you.
Okay, this time we'll put it on to item number 4, Cox Bungalows permit amendment at 1141 West Cox Lane. Presentation from staff, please.
Good evening, my name is Laura Marcelia, and tonight I will present the Cox Bungalows project, permit amendment A 2019-0009. This project went to Planning Commission on October 17th, 2018. At that time, the project was meant to serve seniors. The applicant proposed 30 apartment units, 1 bedrooms, 29 of which would be available to this tenant mix. The apartments would also be market rate housing, and because the proposed tenants were seniors, the Santa Maria Municipal Code required 12 parking spaces, and the applicant provided 14. Since then, the Housing Authority of the Santa Barbara County purchased the site and is proposing to change the tenant mix from seniors aged 55 and older to persons with special needs. They're also proposing to change the rent rate from market rate to affordable housing units available to persons within the 30 to 60% area median income range. And because the population is changed, then the parking requirements have changed as well, where our code requires 1 parking spot for every 3rd senior housing unit. The new population would require 2 parking spaces per unit. So before, the site only required 12 spaces, and now 60 are required. And because the site hasn't changed from the original proposal, they're maintaining the same 14 parking spaces. At the time we presented this project in October 17th, we had several residents come to the hearing in opposition of the project. 3 residents had concerns about the parking, saying that their neighborhood is already highly impacted, and they were concerned that because our code requires or allows reduced parking for seniors, that their neighborhood would be even more impacted. So before this meeting, we try to be conscientious of that, and so we reached out to those residents who came at the last hearing, notifying them of this hearing, in addition to notifying the property owners within 300 feet of the property. And we received a letter from a resident's attorney who requested that this project be continued due to the same parking concerns. And I believe that letter was provided to you in advance, and it should be on your dais. So just to refresh your memories on the project, this project is in the northwest corner of the city. It used to be zoned R1 single family, and with the previous Planning Commission approval, it was rezoned to PD R3, which is planned development, high density residential. It's bound by North Blosser Road and West Cox Lane. The next largest intersection would be West Donovan. The properties to the northeast and south of the site are zoned R1, and they're developed with single-family residences. To the west of the site is agricultural land within Santa Barbara County. This is Aquistapache Farms. If we take a closer look at the site, you can see that it's currently developed. There is an existing 3,000 square foot residence and 2,300 square feet of other structures, including garages, sheds, storage facilities, and 2 workers' quarters. There is a block wall that surrounds the entire site, kind of enclosing it from the surrounding neighborhood. There's a gated opening along West Cox Lane and an emergency access gate at the northeastern corner on North DeJoy Street. The site is 1.3 acres when the surrounding parcels are all about 0.16 acres. So it's considerably larger, which is why at the time we supported the rezone. The applicant, the Housing Authority of Santa Barbara County, is proposing the same site project. So they will demolish the existing structures on site and construct 29 market or affordable housing units that will be available to persons with special needs. And there will also be an on-site manager's unit and an 1,100 square foot community center. This is the existing block wall along North Blosser Road. This will remain on the project. It'll help screen will serve as a barrier to the flood control drainage channel and the agricultural use to the west. Because North Blosser Road is a well-trafficked road, the wall will serve as a sound barrier as well. This is a view of the site looking northeast. This is a picture of the existing single-family residence. Here's another view of the site looking northwest. And here's a photo looking east. You can get an idea of what the surrounding neighborhood looks like. Because the applicant is keeping the same site design, they're proposing to integrate this project into the neighborhood. So I'll show the site plan in the next slide, but they're proposing to orient the new units along the frontage closer to with a similar setback as the other houses. And so they'll remove this wall as well. This is the site plan that Planning Commission reviewed on October 17th. The applicant is proposing 30 housing units. All of them will be 1 bedrooms. There will be a community center and exercise area within the center of the project, and 14 parking spaces within the center. So the housing units will be oriented along the edge of the parcel, providing some more street frontage along the residential streets. The block wall will remain here and along the northern edge of the property. This was something that the residents to the north of the site requested, but this wall will be removed. At the last hearing, because we heard so many concerns regarding parking, staff have included 2 conditions into the draft permit, both of which are meant to remediate any impacts regarding parking in the neighborhood. Condition number 3 is regarding vehicle ownership restriction. This would require that the Housing Authority establish a lease restriction that regulates the number of vehicles allowed per resident, and that they monitor and document this. Condition number 4 proposes a shuttle service that this would also help reduce the need for each resident having a car, and it would allow residents to still access amenities within the area. I'll just go over the proposed architecture, which will remain the same. The applicant is proposing each unit will be a variation of 3 styles of cottage-style bungalow architecture. These will all be single-story structures that will complement the adjacent single-story residences, and there will be patios located on the front of each unit to promote social interaction, reduce noise and lighting, and increase privacy for adjacent property owners. So this is building type A, and we included the colors and materials along the right. Building type B will just have a variation of the same style, but with different colors proposed for the trim and the main body of the facade. This is an example of the third type of unit style. And here's an example of the building type C with the dormers within the roof. The community center architecture will match the cottage-style bungalow look of the residential units, and this will only be available to residents. Prior to the Planning Commission hearing, staff received a letter from the Housing Authority of the County of Santa Barbara. They requested a few changes. Two are regarding the findings that staff included in the draft permit. The first finding is regarding the reduced parking. They wanted this finding struck altogether, but if that would not be possible, then they requested that at least the word concession be changed to modification. Staff still believes that, would still like to keep the finding and would also like to keep the term concession. This was, we feel as though this is a more accurate representation of what the applicant is requesting through this proposal. And it's also consistent with previous projects that we've approved in the past, such as residences at Depot, in which those units were available to persons with special needs, and they requested a parking reduction. I will note that there is an error here, and rather than providing 15 spaces, the applicant is actually providing 14 spaces. The second finding that the applicant is requesting be removed is regarding the required covered parking. There is no section of the code regarding parking that's specific to affordable housing projects or housing projects made available to persons with special needs. The only population that has a separate parking requirement are seniors. And so staff applied the parking requirements that we use for general residential projects, which are 2 parking spaces, one of which should be covered. Staff believes that I would like to keep this finding as well, since we believe this finding is regarding the fact that the project is not providing any covered spaces. And so staff wants to keep this finding because it's an accurate representation of the project. There will be no covered parking spaces provided when 30 covered spaces are required. The other request that the applicant made is regarding one of the conditions of approval. Number 1 is just lists the parking requirements. The first sentence states that a total of 30, that's an error actually, it should say 60 parking spaces are required and 14 spaces are provided. The applicant requested that this sentence be struck out, but staff wants to keep it with the corrections because this is a standard condition that we keep in a lot of our permits.
14 spaces?
It is. 60 required parking spaces and only 14 spaces are provided. So that concludes staff's presentation. Our recommendation is that the Planning Commission by motion approve permit amendment A 2019-0009.
Do we have any questions for staff? Would the applicant like to make a presentation? I did have a short discussion on this project with Lori Tamara earlier today.
Just so you know, it is really hard to hear, so I don't know if they can turn it up louder or talk more direct.
I don't have a volume.
Okay, thanks. If you could put my PowerPoint up, please. Lauren. Good evening. My name is Lori Tamora with Urban Planning Concepts. I'm here representing and working with the Housing Authority of Santa Barbara County as well as Joe Hausel. Last year we presented this project to the Planning Commission and the board, and I'd like to go through a similar presentation that Lauren just made, but just I'll flip through the slides as quickly as possible. First of all, if you'll recall, if you can go to the next slide. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, again, this project was originally initiated by the City Council back in August of 2017. We submitted the application and worked through the city process. It came to the Planning Commission a little over a year later and was recommended for approval on October 17th, 2018. And then we moved on to the City Council on November 20th, 2018. This was described as a market rate senior project. Again, market rate doesn't mean you have to hit market rate. You could be renting them at any level. The issue that we had was that it was solely identified as a senior project. So if you can flip through, I think the next three slides are probably pretty similar to your presentation, Lauren, so if you can keep going. These were the details that Lauren just walked through as far as the project. It was originally, as a senior project, classified as eligible for reduced parking. And initially we did have 15 parking spaces, but in order to meet the city's new super standard for trash enclosures, we did lose one parking space. So the record now shows that as we move forward with construction, we will have 14 parking spaces. The requirement through the Planning Commission was, and the City Council was to provide 12 spaces, and that is permitted by law and permitted by the ordinance. If you could move forward, please. Here's again a detailed plan. I think Lauren went through this, and nothing is changing on this site. It's the same project. What we're talking about here tonight is requests for the tenant that would be living in these units. Go ahead. We have some additional elevations. These were provided previously, and so I just want to continue to show that this is a single-story product. Keep going, Lauren. Thank you. This is how it would look from West Cox. As Lauren mentioned, that brick wall will come down. There will be more of a front relationship to the street and more of a front yard look to the product. Go ahead. Here's a bird's eye view of the project, and the idea is how it blends in with the existing neighborhood. And again, single story, smaller units, and it's sort of isolated in the fact that it's surrounded by walls, but still part of the community. Go ahead. Here's the interior look, shows the color palette, what it's going to look like, and you can keep rolling. Another version of the color palette. And then this is the floor plan. I think it's important to stay focused on what the floor plan consists of. They're 550 square feet. One bedroom, small little living area. All of the bathrooms are handicap accessible, and a small little kitchenette along the front of the unit. So these are not condominiums. They're not large buildings. They're usually single occupancy or maybe a couple living in these units. Go ahead. So I'd like to now introduce Bob and Larry. Bob is Bob from the Housing Authority is going to make a presentation on what the Housing Authority is and what they bring to this project.
Thank you, Lori. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Bob Havlicek. I serve as Executive Director for the Housing Authority of the County of Santa Barbara.
What's your address too, please, for the record? Your
I'm
address.
sorry?
Could you state your address for the record, please?
Yes, 815 West Ocean Avenue in Lompoc. Thank you. So we were founded in 1941, and for the record, I wasn't around then. But we've been serving the low-income community housing needs since then, since June of 41. And the Housing Authority's mission is clear. We're founded on the belief that decent, safe, and sanitary housing is central to physical and emotional health, the productivity and self-esteem of the people it serves. Our mission is to provide affordable housing opportunities for low-income households in an environment which preserves personal dignity and in a manner which maintains the public trust. Just a little bit more background on us. We have an operating budget of approximately $50 million a year, and we have, as you see from this slide, we own and manage over 1,300 units countywide. In the city of Santa Maria, we have 333 units, and you can see the developments that we have there. Ted Zinich Gardens, which we built back in 2008, that serves families. Central Plaza Apartments is 112 units, and it's close to Broadway and Main. We acquired it from the previous owner in 2005 and did some major renovations on that particular property. Rancho Hermosa is a 47-unit development near Broadway and Inger, and it serves formerly homeless and mentally ill folks. And then finally, Evans Park, which is a public housing development built in the 1960s. It's 150 units, and we've owned and managed that since inception. Just to give you sort of a point of reference too, we literally have thousands of names on the waiting list. In May of last year, we opened up our Section 8 waiting list, and for 3.5 weeks, we kept it open, and we had 7,200 applicants. We've gone through quite a few of those, but we still have over 5,000, and that's just on the Section 8 waiting list alone. For the 1,300 units that we own, we have, I think it's more, I'm certain it's more than 6,000 applicants for those 1,300 units. There's a tremendous demand for what we provide the community. So as really what's been mentioned already, in terms of project objectives, we're providing low and very low income rental units in Santa Maria here, and then we will house qualified very low and low income seniors, veterans, people with special needs, and people coming out of homelessness. I should mention that we will likely serve seniors as well in this development. Unfortunately, there are a growing number of homeless seniors. We'll also provide supportive services, as we do in all of our developments. And so those could be, they'll be tailored for each project, but they'll include, but not be limited to, medical services, computer labs, healthy cooking classes, financial literacy. And again, we will survey the residents we serve and provide the services tailored to their needs. It was mentioned earlier that the development, the residence at Depot Street, which is currently under construction, that's an 80-unit development. It has 40 units that are single occupancy, and also 40 units that have 2, 3, and 4 bedroom mixture. And again, that is qualifying residents in the very low and low income range. Part of the 110 staff that we have, a very significant portion of that staff are, their sole purpose is to make sure that the folks that we house are fully qualified, because the financing sources that we use to build these developments is very rigorous. And so we maintain stringent compliance. I should also note, it's not on the slide, but we're audited on every single one of our developments every year, in addition to being audited by as an agency-wide. And that agency-wide audit is not only a financial audit, but it's a compliance audit. And for HUD purposes, we've been a high performer for the last 15 years. So it's very important for us to maintain the integrity of the program, but also the quality of the developments. And so just to give you a point of reference for properties that we currently, of those 1,300 units, we actually have 4 developments that serve formerly homeless. One of them is down in Isla Vista. Pescadero Lofts has 32 units. We actually have 34 parking spaces, and only 7 of them are actually used. Rancho Hermosa is a 47-unit development here in Santa Maria, and we have 118 spaces, and we use 35. And there's a key point here about the parking at Rancho Hermosa. Of the 47 units that are there, 41 of them are 3-bedroom units. So we're serving large families there. We have 6 other units, 4 of which are 1-bedroom and 2 2-bedrooms. So these are just pictures of our existing properties here in Santa Maria. This is Ted's Vintage Gardens, which I mentioned earlier, was built in 2008. It's very close to Highway 101. In fact, if you're and Main Street, if you're coming off, if you're heading south on 101 and exit Main Street, you see our development on the right-hand side. And then Rancho Hermosa, again, that's close to Broadway and Inger, and that was built, I want to say 2008 as well. Sorry, I don't have the exact date. So really, that really concludes in terms of the slides. But I did want to mention a couple of things, and then I'd like to turn it over to Joe also for a comment. We did also review the letter that was submitted, and I know it's already that was submitted by the attorney that represents some of the residents. We did actually. Joe actually walked the streets, the neighborhood, and we invited residents to a meeting, and we did have a few that attended the meeting, and we explained what we were trying to do at this development. That was Thursday last week, actually Thursday evening, starting at 4:30. So the parking issues have already been discussed. But there was another objection raised related to Government Code Section 65915 that requires a bus stop within a half a mile, I believe it is, and we meet that requirement. There's other objections too, and one of which was the proposal specifies the desire to provide housing for people with special needs. This necessarily includes the likely need for more frequent emergency vehicle visits. That has not been our experience at the developments that we manage. We don't have ambulances running to and fro on a regular basis. And I think I'll hold off there and turn it over to Joe also.
Hang on a second. We might have some questions for you, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner Maribel Hernandez.
Yes, you stated that there was a special needs housing. Did you provide what that means? What is the definition, and why does that change the project?
Well, with special needs housing, so we serve families, we serve seniors, and there are developments like this that are special needs. So special needs can be anything from formerly homeless, veterans with special needs, seniors with special needs. So it's a very broad category. But the distinguishing difference is when it's a normal family or a senior development, they don't have a specific special need. they only have to qualify for low income. But if it's a special needs individual, in addition to being low income, they have some other qualifying attribute. Either they have a disability or they have some other type of special need, and they're referred from other agencies.
Okay, so my question is then, you have, as a house, Section 8, you have a list, right? And there's number 1 on the list who's next going to get housing. They don't have a special need, but number 10 on the list has a special need. Do you have to give them priority in this housing?
Yes, so we'll actually have a separate waiting list for this that's site specific to this development.
And you find, and how many other special needs housing do we have in Santa Maria?
The only one I'm aware of is the one that we serve in Rancho Hermosa.
That's
Good Samaritan also has some scattered sites as well, but I'm not familiar with their operations, so I don't know.
But I'm talking about the housing authority. How many special needs
Developments do we have?
do you have? Yes.
Countywide, we have 4.
And in Santa Maria?
In Santa Maria, we have 1.
Okay.
And then we have 1 under construction, Depot Street.
Okay.
And we're in discussions on quite a few others throughout the county, but we currently have 4.
Okay.
Commissioner Lopez Blanco? I have a question on the vehicle ownership restriction. How is that regulated? And on this particular site, what would be the regulations for your parking, and how many vehicles would you allow on site?
So we have, since we're limited on parking, so a couple things. First, likely many of the people that we serve won't have vehicles because they can't afford them. And that's our experience at other special needs developments. So, but we will have a lease addendum specifically that restricts the use of vehicles until it's actually, until we meet the limit. So, Larry, do you have any other comments to make in terms of how the mechanics? Our housing management group will have an on-site property manager, and so every single individual that has a vehicle will be required to sign a lease addendum. And and once we reach the maximum, which doesn't seem likely, but if we would, they would not be allowed to have a vehicle.
So the maximum in this case would be 13 with 1 space for the manager?
That's correct.
So you would restrict it to 13 total vehicles with no street parking. That would be the amount total?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's enforceable through your lease?
That's enforceable through our lease, exactly. Through a specific lease addendum. The addendum helps emphasize it because we have a lot of house rules as well. So we do a separate addendum which they sign separately.
And do you know if that is against the law in any way to restrict car ownership?
Well, their willingness to, they don't have to accept living there. They're not required to live there. But we can stipulate the conditions without violating fair housing or any other laws.
Does Ted Zenich have the same sort of restriction?
No, because it's a family development and it has the required parking places from the ordinance, if I recall correctly.
Are there any other facilities you have in Santa Maria that have that sort of restriction?
No, not except for Depot Street. Yes, we do have. So for Depot, we have 80 units, and there was 61 parking places that were approved by the Planning Commission at the time, and so we have a very specific, if you will, parking matrix, and so the tenants that move in will have to abide by the same restrictions.
Thank you.
Mr. Blanco, go ahead.
How do you prioritize what units or what tenants will have a vehicle? Are they first come, first serve, or how do you do that?
It's basically first come, first serve. So you know, again, from past experience, we're not concerned about. I should say we're not overly concerned. It's unlikely from probability that that many of our residents will have vehicles. They
So
simply can't afford them.
if you say, well, you can't really restrict ownership and they're just not going to park on site, what's to keep them from owning a vehicle and parking off site?
If we become aware of it, I'm not certain how we would move forward with it, but we would take action because they would be in violation of their lease. So if it was brought to our attention that they actually had a vehicle when they represented that they didn't, they'd be violating the lease and they would be subject to eviction.
Commissioner Lopez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question regarding Railroad Street. Was Railroad Street, you said there's 80 units and there are 61 parking spaces. Was there a concession there?
Yes.
For parking? Okay.
There was a modification.
Okay, and that was a reduction in parking of what percentage?
I don't know what, well, there's 80 units and quite a mixture of units there. There's basically 40 studios and 1 bedrooms, and then the other 40 are 2s, 3s, and 4s. So there was a significant modification in terms of the parking.
The residents that don't own cars or have a vehicle, are those in the single room or in the studios?
No. So even the 2s, 3s, and 4s are restricted in terms of their allowance for a vehicle.
Okay. And that concession was given for low income?
It was given for the population we're serving.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Very low and low income, but yes.
And in this letter, March 19, 2019, that says that you need this designation for your funding sources. Is that the reason why you're asking for this?
Yes, that's correct. And that's consistent with the past developments that we have done.
I know on Depot Street, they're talking about having a counselor there for anybody that's having any condition like mental, not physical.
Yes.
Is this so when we're talking about disabilities, what kind of disabilities are we talking about for this facility? Is it a physical disability? Is there a designation?
Yeah, so for Depot Street, we have what's called Mental Health Services Act funds. So that actually has a certain specialty. Those with former chemical addictions and mental health issues. This development does not have any Mental Health Services Act or MHSA funding with it. It does have No Place Like Home and what's called Heap Funding. So it's basically, we're targeting those folks with special needs, particularly formerly homeless. So, and it's hard to predict exactly what the mixture of residents will be, but our past experience of the homeless here in Santa Barbara County, more than 10% of those, roughly speaking, are veterans. So there'll be a component of serving veterans in addition to other types of homeless.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please continue.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe for a couple comments. Thank you.
Name and address, please.
Joe Hossel. Address is 1335 Morgan Trail.
Thank you.
Can we get it to the site plan for the project? So what I briefly want to talk about is, why we had a senior project approved and why it's moving to a special needs project at this point, or why we're asking for the modification for the zoning. So for the past 2 years, we had, because my family owns and maintains senior care facilities, that was our first intention. And we had even designed it like one of the old garden courts that you'll find all over the older portions of Santa Maria. We did have the ability at that point to ask for a bonus, density bonus, but which would have resulted in upwards of 40 units, but they would all be attached. They would be a bunch of row housing, and it was really just against what we wanted to accomplish with the project. It would not have been a garden court style project. And if we were forced to go 2-story, that just would not fit into the neighborhood. So initially, we just didn't ask for a density bonus because we just didn't think it was appropriate. We thought it would be too many if we got what was allowed in the code. You know, basically what would have amounted to a 35% density bonus, which is 40 units on a 1.3 acre R3 site. So, and that's one of the reasons that some of the parking restrictions talked about in AB 744 don't necessarily apply to us, because we didn't apply for a density bonus, but we did it based on like the integrity of the project as it interacted with the neighborhood. So we were very, very dedicated to doing senior because just personally as a family, we're sensitive to the need in the community for senior. I have been working very, very closely, however, over the last year with the United Way's Home for Good program. And they have they have a lot of partners in the room, including the city, particularly the Housing Authority. And as I kept working with Home for Good as a board member of United Way, and then as a developer seeking projects for the Home for Good program, I became keenly aware of populations that just really have extreme needs for a roof over their head. And when we talk about special needs and the folks that need some sort of service surrounding them at the project, it does end up serving folks who are formerly homeless. A lot of that population, senior, vet, mentally, it could be all kinds. But so as we were approaching, actually we got our senior project approved, and then and I guess this happens when there are funding rounds out there that are for targeted populations. We got it approved, and very shortly thereafter, we found out that the Housing Authority really would like to have a project like this, particularly because of the availability of funds through Heap and No Place Like Home for projects that were, shovel ready. I mean, the funds are only good for so long, and it doesn't. The funds really only address. I mean, they have to be spent on projects that are done and moved into and up and running. And in the city and the county, it's not very easy to get that whole thing done in 2 years. So our Cox project. When we started talking with them, it was pretty apparent that the population that it could serve with the Housing Authority, we could not do that, but the population that it will serve with the Housing Authority has a way more acute need to have a roof over their head right now, and the issues that it causes in the outside world for those folks, especially the highest utilizers of our systems, to not have a roof over their head. It comes with a very large social cost and physical cost to the city and the hospital and AMR and code enforcement. I mean, there's a lot of costs out there. So we did not approach this project development approval, from day one or even probably from day 300 to try to switch this to a low-income special needs project. But at the end, and timing just happened, that we became aware of a need that was much more intense. Yeah, and I guess really we don't want to change. Nobody wants to change the site. There's a definite. It sounds like if 60 were required and we're only providing 14. I know that sounds scary, but the reality, just like it is with senior, the reason those small units with seniors only require 0.3 parking spots is because they don't have a car and and nobody visits. You know, that's just one of those realities. So, and I think the Housing Authority delivered a pretty good empirical data that really on a special needs project, the cars are just not there. So, anyhow, if you guys have questions for me about that, I'd be happy, you know, about the intent or anything, I'd be happy to answer them.
Doesn't look like it.
So that's the end of our presentation. We believe strongly in this program. The Housing Authority has a great reputation, and this would be the right fit, the right project, the right time. And we hope that you will take heart in the letter that was provided in the analysis of the Depot Street project, where the concession modification was given to the single occupancy units for reduced parking. And we think it's appropriate here, comparable to what was done for the senior. And we're here hoping that you'll approve the project tonight. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Lori. We have some speakers. Hopefully someone will buy a new mic. We have some speakers tonight. In favor, we have Dorothy Morgan-Vero.
Good evening. I'm Dorothy Morgan-Vero, and I am a United Way Home for Good program. And our focus is helping the homeless and our veterans throughout the entire county. We are in support of this project and other projects like it. We recently had a census, the point-in-time count, back in January. And from that, we took a look on a one-day event where we're taking a look at how many of our homeless are in our different cities throughout Santa Barbara County. When we take a look at that, we today just had some numbers come up to be able to take a look at. We had 89 census tract map sections that we did a census on our homeless and who's out there, families and individuals. We found at this point in time that we had 449 community helpers, people that volunteered to be out there to make a difference, and actually 32 of our homeless actually joined in the census count to find out what's going on, to make those connections and to make it easier for us to interact with our people out on the streets. We found that at this point in time, as far as counted in our database, about 464 homeless in Santa Maria. That's about a 10% increase from the census we did in 2017. That gives us about 40% of the homeless in Santa Barbara County reside here in the Santa Maria area. With that, we're finding that 36% are actually living on the streets, 27% are living in their vehicles, and often that's families. And we have about 37% living in shelters. So as you can see with our program, what we're doing is taking a look at encountering our homeless, encountering our veterans, assessing them, finding out what their immediate needs are, and with a focus of housing first. We don't have housing anywhere in Santa Barbara County that can handle the homeless population and even the veterans that we have out there. So we're looking at projects like this and other projects that give us focus and give us the ability to house these people first, but it comes with support services. The Housing Authority is an amazing partner. We are involved in all of their projects throughout the county. One of the other aspects of this, which is really good for us as United Way, is we have other programs that we want to provide to our low-income and our moderate-income families and individuals. We have literacy programs. We have financial support programs. And what we're able to do is we go multiple times a year to all of the housing projects that the Housing Authority has, and we provide them with the information at their meetings that they hold from month to month to let them know what else is out that's available to them to make their lives better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have two speakers opposed. First will be Marilyn Garcia. The second will be David Bixby. 3 minutes each.
My name is Marilyn Garcia, and I live on 1715 North DeJoy. I'm the residence that's right behind where this is going to be taking place. And I had two questions, but one got answered when one of them was speaking. And I appreciate because they did meet with us and we had questions to ask them, and they did answer quite a few questions that we had. I'm not opposing having this done. The only concern that most of the residents that live around there were concerned because of the homeless. And I kind of explained to them what I was told verbally. So I think we're a little bit at ease on that situation. My only question is that I verbally have been told, because of me living in the back part of this, my unit the block wall is only 4 feet. On their side, it's 6 feet. And I'm told verbally that they're going to be lifting it up to 6 feet on my side. So I want that to be noted that this is going to happen and not just have it verbally said to me. I'd like something in writing or a contract or something to let me know that this is going to happen. I don't know when they're going to start doing the building or any of that kind of stuff, because I got to kind of prepare myself. Like I said, I'm really close to the buildings where they're going to be making, so I will have to make arrangements for myself also, because I do have bronchitis and I get it really easy. And in fact, I got a scare the other day when the firemen were out there and we knew nothing that they were going to be out there, and they were on top of the roofs, and seeing all the smoke and all that, it just scared the death out of me. Being a senior, I do drive my car. My daughter was with me at that time. She says, "Mom, you got to get out of the house. The houses are on fire next to us," and no one explained anything to us. So most of the residents, we were pretty scared with that. But we're glad it wasn't a fire. The police, I guess the fire department doing their practicing on the building, but there was a lot of smoke, so it did kind of bother me. So I just would like it to be stated, please make sure that my wall does get lifted from my parkway like it has been told to me. So it would be 6 feet on my side, so I won't be having to see everything that's going on over here on the other part of the buildings being made. Thank you.
Thank you, and I did misspeak. This is marked neutral. It is not marked opposed. Thank you for your time. David Bixby, and he has marked opposed.
Well, thank you, Chairman Siebert and fellow commissioners. My name is David Bixby, and my office is located at 937 East Main Street, and specifically Suite 206. It's a noble attempt to resolve a significant problem in our community. There's no doubt about that. It's also premature, and we need some time to back some of this information up with some facts and some investigation, because a large portion of my practice is devoted to issues relating to the homeless. I have a contract with Santa Barbara County to provide services, but here's the thing. I heard them say that they felt confident, and when I say that, I'm talking about the Housing Authority. They felt confident of the fact that people would abide by the restricted parking and so forth. We have pictures. I sent pictures, but actually the pictures that the Planning Commission or Planning Department provided were actually better pictures, and none of them show the condition of the street parking after people get out of work. Okay, but if you go down Cox Lane, you'll see that the street is lined with cars that are parked along the curb line there. And part of that is because we already have an existing problem where more than one family is occupying houses in Santa Maria at this point in time. And although we haven't had time to do any kind of surveying or question the occupants, it seems as if because there's so many people occupying these homes that they're actually forced to park out in the streets. And that's in the evening time after they get out of work. So what do we know? I mean, what impact information do we have? What's been done to establish whether or not this is going to be a problem that's worsened with this kind of planned development? We don't know. Nobody's taken the time to really figure that out. Another thing, too, that is a concern is, as you know, Blosser is a main thoroughfare. It is a very occupied street, if you will, or road. And while it was represented to you that there would be transit available for these people, transportation, really, where is this transportation located? How do the people get there if they're on foot? Is it safe for them to even be going in that direction, particularly if it's linked in any way to Blosser Road? So that was another concern. Nobody's really investigated exactly where that transit line is going to be, you know, how far it really is from the project.
We're kind of over time here, Mr. Bixby.
I understand, but here's the problem. Okay, well.
What's your point? What's your next point?
My point is simply this. We have residents that live in this area, and it seems like they're being neglected, and their concerns and their needs are being neglected in favor of somebody coming in and asking for a major variance, a major change in this development that has not been properly explored. And
are you referring to the parking?
Not just parking, the impact altogether. And I believe that a continuance is appropriate in order to give people time to really assess this and take a look at it.
Thank you.
For that reason, we're going to ask that you continue this hearing.
Thank you very much. Are there any rebuttals? Do you have a slip filled out?
Not yet, but I will fill one out before I leave.
She wants to speak. She wants to speak. I think she wants to speak.
She does?
Did you want to speak?
Yes.
Okay, that's the time. Come on up. Sorry. My name is Patty Green, and I live at 1707 DeJoy Street. And I want to just comment about Mr. Bixby's comment. In my neighborhood, I live right where DeJoy curves to go around onto, actually it's DeJoy Street, and then it goes down to Cox. In the evenings, I mean, during the day too, it's quite heavily populated with vehicles. But in the evenings, there's no way anybody that comes to visit me can park on the street because all parking spaces are taken up. Even during the day, most of the time, unless they want to walk half a block or a block, they must park in my driveway. Several residences there have 3 and 4 cars in the driveway plus 2 or 3 on the street. And like I say, during the day when people go by, you know, people that work 8 to 5, they don't see that. It's like in the evenings, after everyone's off work, when people should be paying attention to the amount of parking that is available after all the residents of these homes park their cars. That's pretty much it.
Thank you for being here tonight. Any more rebuttals? Okay. Any questions? Lori, are you going to speak?
Yes, thank you. We looked at this project in the context of taking it from a senior project to special needs, low income. And we've actually, with this change, probably have made the situation better as far as the parking concerns because of the qualifications, the requirements, the program that the Housing Authority operates. There's much more stringent standards than there would by a private ownership. And we think that that's probably one of the biggest pieces of information that you should consider is the Housing Authority's reputation and their property management and the fact that they've been able to address a lot of needs in the community under very strict requirements. And all of the people that will be coming into this project are qualified. They have to meet the standards before they even are allowed to live in these units. And the fact that they're single unit studio, one bedroom situation, there are fewer people here than there would be in some of their other projects. So we think that this is a win-win for the community, and we look forward to your action. Thank you.
We have a question.
I have a quick question, Bob. What is the anticipated average occupancy? Not percentage of occupancy. I imagine it'll be 100%. But how long are the people you expect the people to stay in the facilities or each of the apartments?
This is permanent housing, so they can stay in perpetuity. And I want to address one issue in terms of. It sounds like in the neighborhood there are multiple families living in, one dwelling unit. The funding sources that we use particularly the low-income housing tax credit program, restricts us in terms of who occupies those units. So they all have to be income qualified, and we will simply not allow more than one family. We won't allow two families into our units. And so for a one-bedroom unit, it's typically no more than two people. Most of them will actually be single, is what we're anticipating.
So is there going to be a maximum occupancy requirement here?
Well, so the maximum occupancy, if I recall the occupancy standards correctly, you can only have two people for one bedroom, and I think these have plus one for a living room. So in theory, it's possible that there could be three people in one unit. Our experience, though, is the majority of the folks that we serve, we anticipate will be single individuals. Excuse me.
Can you explain to me the shuttle service and how it works?
I know that we're going to be utilizing Smooth, but I'm not as familiar with the transportation as others are, so I'll turn it over to Joe.
Thank you.
When the project was first approved, there was a letter in our packet from the executive director of Smooth, just explaining that they would be servicing the project on demand. Whenever anybody called and needed a ride, they would come and get them. $2 round trip anywhere in the city. So they commented on how good the access was, how it's easy to turn their buses around inside the project. But I mean, I think actually you guys are able to buy passes in bulk and provide them to the tenants, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So oftentimes the folks we serve are very low income, and believe it or not, the $2 may not sound like a lot to many, but it is to some of the people that we serve. So we will provide a special reimbursement to those families that qualify. We'll try and arrange it so that if they need help even with the cost of Smooth, we'll provide it.
So rather than having the on-site shuttle, you've got the off-site lease agreement?
Yes, and if we need to provide it for this project, I'm sure that the director of Smooth would be very happy to do it as well, but it was definitely part of our project and the documentation provided the last time.
Thank you.
I have a question. I believe that Smooth has certain requirements that they have to meet, and so was that provided to staff?
Yeah, I am not sure. Actually, we did. Yeah, we definitely emailed the letter
I didn't see anything in our packet about that.
Not this time, but for sure the last time. I mean, it was definitely a part of the documentation that we provided staff.
So, because I know that they have time requirements that they won't service before a certain time or after a certain time. That's why I'm asking.
Do
you know?
I do not know the details.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. This time I'm going to go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for staff. Is single room occupancy still part of our code? I know it's in the building, I'm sorry, it's in the parking, off-street parking requirements, but single room occupancy was something we heard maybe 9, 10 years ago, but it never was really an ordinance, right?
Chairman Seifert, Commissioner Lopez, the single room occupancy kind of was a short period, and it was kind of targeted for the Town Center Hotel. That was really the only project that fit at that time. It was replaced subsequently by the efficiency unit ordinance, which applied more generally along the commercial, the C2 district. So to answer your question, the single room occupancy does no longer exist in the zoning code.
Because in Chapter 12, the Municipal Code, Chapter 1232, it does list it, and that's why I was confused, because I think the gentleman from the Housing Authority noted it in his letter. Parking spaces required for residential single room occupancy facilities. So that's not the SRO that we...
Yeah, I'm not sure what, I assumed that was the efficiency unit, the successor to that ordinance, because I know, I just looked at it last night, there isn't a single room occupancy ordinance. There still may be a category in the zoning code for it. Are you looking that up, Netta?
Commissioner Chairman, what was referred to in the letter that the Housing Authority provided was a section out of our off-street parking standards that still have that definition. In terms of building code or occupancy, we don't have the ability or a mechanism to limit the amount of people in a unit or a room or a house. In terms of maximum occupancy or restriction, that's not something through the building code or the zoning code we have the ability to do.
Thank you.
No. Going to close the public hearing, bring this back to the commission. We have a discussion, a motion.
Yes.
When I first heard that the Housing Authority and household builders wanted to shift this from senior to a Housing Authority project, I initially had a negative reaction to it. I mean, to be perfectly frank about it, and not because of the Housing Authority, good gosh no, but basically because senior housing is in such need. The unfortunate thing about these special needs people is that it's a never-ending well. I mean, you're gonna provide housing for 29 people, and then then you're gonna have 59,000 or 5,900 additional people, 60 people waiting in line for the next 29 units. So from that standpoint, I was not particularly open to the concept. I was also concerned for the residents. There was a lot of discussion about parking and about the impact to the residents, and we were very aware of the on-street parking problems. Now, when we approved this project originally, there were a lot of promises by Joe and others that they were going to deal with the parking issues, and we accepted that on face value, and frankly, households are very respectable people, so we took them at face value on that. So I will say this: I originally had a negative thought about it. Before I became, so many years ago, a planning commissioner, I was on the board for the Housing Authority, and I got to see how they ran things. I got to see how they dealt with things. And Lori will tell you, the thought of giving such an enormous break on parking, I just normally wouldn't do. I mean, I would be throwing a fit about this sort of thing. If it weren't for the Housing Authority, these guys are really stand up. If they have this in their lease documents, they'll hold these people to it. And oddly enough, I think this transfer, although I don't like the fact that we're not dealing with seniors anymore, this transfer will actually protect the neighborhoods more than had they been private ownership by senior living. I know from my own past experience that these Section 8 housing vouchers are so few and far between that once you get into a house, man, you mind your P's and Q's. You do not want to be out on the street and out of your Section 8 housing. So you follow all of the rules, and the Housing Authority checks all the rules. So for that reason, I would support this project. I would support this project change.
Commissioner Hernandez?
Yes. I have listened to everything tonight. I've read through all the materials, but I still don't have a clear definition as to what the special needs housing is. So I really don't understand. You're asking us to change this, so I don't understand what I'm approving officially because I didn't get a definition. I didn't get any insight as to what that means. I heard that some meant we're going to house the homeless, some maybe a small family of 2 or 3 because there's max occupancy. The city staff is saying we cannot limit the amount of people that live in a home. And I understand that you're going to have a lease and you're going to restrict, but then at the same time, if we're going to house homeless, it's because we want to help them to get a job, to have a car, to be able to be contributing members of society, and we're limiting their rights simply because they're low income and restricting the ability as to what they can do simply because we're going to put a roof over their head. And while I understand that the intent is good, there's all these restrictions that we're trying to make and fit here because we're looking at very low-income housing or low-income housing. You heard Mr. Hossel mention that this would reduce the impact on hospital AMR code enforcement, and I don't know if those impacts would then go to this area of town that seems to be already impacted in parking. And so for that reason, as of now as well with the smooth bus, I don't know what that agreement is and what I'm agreeing to say yes to as a planning commissioner. So I do need more information in order to get to a yes vote, or I would ask for a continuance so that we can get more information, or I'm not ready to vote in favor of this project right now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Blanco?
Thank you. Well, I think the project sounds really good, and I like the goals of it, and I think the needs are there in general in the community. I think that that it's a very purposeful project. The challenge I had, I echo what Commissioner Maribel Hernandez was talking about, was just definition. I really didn't know how are you defining special needs, and although we were given a loose definition. I think if we're going to commit to something like this, I think we need a little bit better definition. The parking situation really hits home to me a little bit. I live in an area that's impacted by parking and by high density residential, and I'll tell you, it's pretty difficult to manage getting through those roads when they're very, very congested. It actually, I don't know how many times I've almost, hit a pedestrian walking across the street because I can't see them behind cars. So I'm very sensitive to that. I think it sort of turns into a little bit of a safety issue as well. Now, can the project overcome these challenges? I think it can, but I think we'd have to be given some numbers, some empirical data. I think there was some discussion about other projects and how much parking was really utilized day to day. I think that's a reasonable start, and I think having the opportunity to study that a little bit closer really makes a lot of sense. And rather than make a hasty decision, I would support continuing the item and having a little bit more evaluation so that we're making the right smart decision for the project and for the community in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm in agreement with everything that's been said up here. I think the Housing Authority does give some security to this type of project, and there is that need. I think my initial reaction from a senior to a more affordable housing project was more receptive, I think, because I know that need is there for veterans, for the homeless, for families, really. I think, do I think this project is being used to its best value? No, I think these units are very large. I mean, I know you didn't go for the density bonus, but this is a project that maybe could have, helped the community a little bit more. I go back to Ted Zenich, the project behind Jack in the Box. What was it, 10 years ago? That I think the whole community came out against it. And it was regarding parking. It was regarding just, I guess, the type of tenants that were going to be there, because there was a very, very busy meeting, and to this day, I think it's probably one of the best run projects in town. The Housing Authority has the leases written in such a way that the tenants do abide by all the rules that they're given. So the parking still is, it's tough to really think that you're getting a quarter of what's required, essentially. So I would be in agreement to maybe study this a little bit more. I think it's on the right track, getting the Housing Authority involved. They're really good management. They're a really great management company. So I would concur with moving this to another meeting, at least exploring it a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Seifert, can I ask the Housing Authority one quick question?
Absolutely.
Bob, if we continued this to the April 3rd meeting so you guys could get some more information, would that scuttle you putting in for, because I'm assuming that part of the funding is is putting in for tax incentives?
That's correct. And what I'm hearing is what we can do is give you a detailed definition of special needs and also the information specifically, the lease addendum for the parking to try and address that. And if there's any other issues, we need to...
Shuttle.
The smooth bus.
And the smooth.
Is there going to be an agreement with them? And if so, what is that agreement?
It says in here there will be a lease agreement with the shuttle service.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So you would still be able to be moving forward with your project. It would not just torpedo this thing if we push it out to the April.
That's correct. And we're also happy to meet with the neighbors again and answer additional questions to try and address any concerns that they have.
Good, thank you. I haven't been on the Housing Authority as Commissioner Dickerson, but I have been on the CDBG for years and helped on the Project Hermosa. I've seen it through fruition. I've seen I drive by it. I actually do business there. The good Sam has a office in there. It's very well run. I think that you guys are actually proposing a better project than what was originally proposed. I, at first, also was, oh my gosh, what about the seniors? Where, you know, what are we doing? Why are we taking the senior housing away? But I'm all in favor for what the Housing Authority is doing. I work on the CDBG and with the nonprofits here in town. It's a huge need. They're very well run, and they do abide by their leases. So if, because this isn't the first time we've seen this project, parking has always been a huge issue. With the gal in the back, I mean, we've seen you before. We know where you live. We know how high your wall is. We know how the section is only this big and you want it that big. I mean, we are very familiar with this. So I'm really thinking you're going to get a better tenant in your neighborhood, and I do believe that the parking is addressed. And I think it's going to be better addressed with this project than it was with the senior project. And that's my feeling on it. So with that, I'm going to call for a motion.
I move that we continue Cox Bungalows permit amendment at 1141 West Cox Lane to April 3rd meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you on the 3rd. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bixby, and
thank you for your
the
time.
residences.
Bob, can I ask you, could you also, along with the stuff, could you make sure you let us know what you're doing with Ms. Garcia's extra 2 feet of wall?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you step to the microphone, please, Mr. Bixby?
Felt somewhat at a disability because we probably have things that we need to produce and show you, but it's going to take more than 3 minutes. So I felt somewhat restricted today. We had a lot of discussion from the pro element, but how much time can you allow somebody to speak to some of the issues that are, is it not on?
No, it's on. I'm going to let staff answer that question, Mr. Bixby. We'll get you an answer right now.
So the chair of the Planning Commission has the authority to determine how long speakers have to speak. Typically, public speaking is a 3-minute limit, and that's how we're set up. So if the chair decides we can grant additional time to speakers if it's the will of the commission to flush additional information out, or limit it to 3 minutes if we have a lot of speakers and we're trying to allow time for everybody to speak within the evening.
My point was that the materials should be provided to staff ahead of time before the meeting, and we should then have staff who forwards it to the commission. And preferably 2 days before the meeting, because it goes out to the public on Friday and before the meeting, so then that becomes part of, you know, the documents that are distributed to the public.
Basically, we're talking about a 2-week continuance here, and I guess I'll be speeding around trying to gather up the information, but it just seems like there was a lot of time allotted to people that were proponents of the plan, and not enough time allotted to people.
Everyone got 3 minutes. You actually went over.
I know, you told me something.
Yes. So yes. So okay. You'll probably we'll see you next time and see what we can do. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Phil Cinco.
Paging Phil Cinco. Paging Phil Cinco. Philip Cinco.
Oh, man.
We're going to go ahead and get back in session. At this time, we're going to move on to item number 5. Sara Monte Townhomes, general plan use map amendment and zone change at the southwest corner of Blosser Road and Carmen Lane. Can we hear from staff, please?
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. The next project before you is the Sara Monte Townhomes project. This is at 2033 and 2105 South Blosser Road. The project site is located at the southwest corner of Carmen Lane and South Blosser Road. The site itself is 7.7 acres. It's surrounded by residents to the west and to the north, and across the street there is a CHC offices and vacant land that is zoned commercial for future development, part of the Betaravia Plaza project. Just south of the project site is a multi-tenant industrial building. The applicant is requesting a variety of permits for this project site, one of which is a general plan amendment and zone change. Currently, the land use and zoning of the site is, a portion of it is currently community commercial and intended for neighborhood commercial uses, and the southern portion of the site is light manufacturing in an M1 zoning district. The applicant is proposing to rezone this site and to make the largest portion of the site HDR, which is high-density residential land use designation, and an R3 high-density residential zoning designation. In essence, they're turning it into a residential site. The lower southern portion of the site has an existing Quintron building on it that's occupied by Quintron Corporation. That portion will remain as an industrial building and in operation and will be carved out to remain as an industrial site. However, it's going from a M1 zoning district, which is light manufacturing, to a CM zoning district. The only reason for that zone change is so that it isn't the only M1 site left in this area, and it blends with the existing CM zoning designation just south and west of that portion. Here are some pictures of the existing conditions of the project site. This is views from Blosser Road looking onto the project site. This is looking south, and this picture is of the site looking north. Across the street, across Carmen Lane, this is a continuation of the Blosser Road frontage in front of the Westgate Apartments project, to give you some context of how the site fits into the area. Here is a view of the project site on Carmen Lane. This is a view of the project site looking to the west of Carmen Lane, and this is directly on the sidewalk right at the western portion of the site, looking onto the site. As you can see from this picture, there is a grade change on this project site, and that grade change will still be part of the project once it's developed. Across Carmen Lane, this is a view of the Westgate Apartments, looking directly at it, and here is the sidewalk walking in front of those Westgate Apartments. The the western boundary of the project site has a multi-purpose trail along it, and that multi-purpose trail connects from this portion of the project site to across the street on Carmen Lane to the connection that continues on this path to a school and a park within that neighborhood.
You sure that's the northern boundary?
It's not. It's western.
Thank you. Okay.
Apologize for that.
Okay.
Here is a site plan of the proposed development. Along with the general plan amendment and zone change, the applicant is processing a tentative tract map for subdivision of this site and also processing a plan development permit for the project itself. What the applicant is proposing is in that area that they're designating for high-density residential to construct 85 townhomes in the project. Those townhomes will be on individual lots, so 85 residential lots, with one common lot that will encompass the private streets and common areas of the project site. The remainder Quintron building will be on its own individual lot. So the tentative tract map will be to process that subdivision, and then the plan development permit is to review the development itself. So within the 85 unit townhome project, they are also doing frontage improvements along Blosser Road and Carmen Lane. They're doing improvements to the multi-purpose trail, constructing a community building at the northwest corner of the site, and also a variety of retention basins which will be used for recreational purposes along with that common building. Here's a section of what the proposed Blosser Road frontage will look like. Here's Blosser Lane as it exists. There'll be, this will vary throughout the site, but here's just a typical section of what it could look like. There'll be a parkway in some portions that will allow for street trees and landscaping, a sidewalk, and then some additional area to provide landscaping up along the subdivision wall that will be built along Blosser Road. Blosser Road will have a slump stone 8-foot-high subdivision wall that spans the length of Blosser Road, and that will be softened with landscaping, and it will look similar to the Westgate Apartments project that is just further north on Blosser Road. And so here's a depiction of the existing site and in theory what this is going to look like once constructed. Now there won't be lawn in this area, as that's not allowed in public.
Excuse me, Netta, for one moment.
Netta, I had a question.
Sure.
Because this, I think this was one of the pictures that we saw originally, where that wall, it shows 8-foot to 12-foot proposed wall, right? So what is the actual elevation from, say, the sidewalk to the top of that wall?
So there is a condition in the plan development permit that requires that the restriction of this height of this wall here would be capped at 8 feet along Blosser Road.
Right, so the one that we saw at study session was different, right? Because it showed it lower.
It's going to change in elevation, but the condition limits the height of that for this person walking along Blosser Road to be at an 8-foot height.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's okay. If there's any other questions, please feel free to chime in. It will vary, and as you can see from this site plan, there is articulation in the wall plane, which will have 2-foot different articulation to just add variety and change in that wall plane as you go along that whole Blosser frontage. There will be street trees added and landscaping in the form of shrubs and ground cover in that area. Again, there won't be lawn, as that's no longer allowed by the state in public right-of-ways. Moving to the proposed Carmen Lane frontage. Here's again a picture of what the Carmen Lane frontage looks like on the project site. Again, there is a grade change, so this section does reflect what that grade change will be. There'll be a sidewalk and then a 10-foot, and again, this section has showing a fence within that, but that fence will be pushed back. There'll be a 10-foot area where street trees will be planted, and then a fence will be located after that 10-foot designation to allow for street tree planting, and then a 6-foot fence before you enter into the project site. That fence will be tubular steel, similar to what you see in this picture of across the street at Westgate Apartments. Again, this is a flat elevation from across the street. What you're going to see from this project is more of a grade change here with the street trees planted. So there'll be a slight elevation, if you could picture that. The current chain link fence is around the same area where you're going to see now that steel tubular fence located with the street trees planted in this area along the sidewalk. Then here again is a site plan showing what that would look like. If we move to the multi-purpose trail is a 15-foot easement that's going to be retained. This shows the existing residents' backyards of the subdivision just west of it and their existing 8-foot wall. And then there's some space there where landscaping is. There's the 8-foot walkway or sidewalk there. And then there'll be some additional area where plantings will occur. That'll be about 4 feet. Again, with shrubs and ground covers to soften this area. There'll be a retaining wall in certain portions because there's also a grade change, and then a steel fence on top of that as well. There's been a condition that's been placed in this PD permit as well that this entire elevation not be more than 8 feet for those that are using the multi-purpose trail, they don't have large walls or enclosures for more ease and accessibility for the multi-purpose trail. And then moving on to the project site, there'll be interior walkways and landscaping, and then the proposed townhome buildings. Moving to the elevations of the buildings, these are townhomes with shared units. Most of them are going to be in 4-unit packs or 6-unit packs for 85 total. They will be alley loaded in the sense that access to them will be from shared common driveways in the rear where they access their garages, and in the central portion they'll be where their front doors and front yards are a shared common area or a paseo area. That will be landscaped as shown over here with amenities such as patio areas, common patio areas with seating and barbecue pits, and landscaping and trellis features in this area. This style is more of a mission traditional with some Spanish revival components added to it. There's 3 different plans with slight modifications to those elevations based on what the overall 4-pack or 6-pack of units are composed of. Here on the left is an elevation of the community building that's on the northwest corner of the project site, and this will have various amenities for use of the Sara Monta Townhomes project. And outside of the community building, there is a play yard area and recreational yard lawn area that also serves as an infiltration basin for the project site. There's outdoor trellis area with seating in that, and then direct access from the community building to that multi-purpose trail just west of it. Okay, moving on to the floor plans. Here's a depiction of the floor plan. They are 2-story. First floor plan has the common living areas and the garage, and then the upper floors have the bedrooms, and they vary from 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom units. Here's a rendering of the paseo area that we were just discussing. Front doors of the units face this area, and there's common area in between, and this will all be landscaped and maintained by the HOA that will be taking care of all the private driveways, streets, and common spaces within the project. Here is a rendering of what the community building will look like, and again with the trellis feature and outdoor seating area, and then access from that to the common areas. And then here is a rendering of the entrance off of Carmen Lane. There's no entrance for the project off of Blosser Road. The only entrance to the site for the residents is off Carmen Lane, and then there's an emergency exit should emergency vehicle access be needed onto the Quintron site to the south. As discussed previously in study sessions, this gate design allows for about up to 3 cars to stack while waiting for this gate to be operational, as to not hinder stacking onto Carmen Lane with people waiting to enter the site at any given high volume hour. We did receive a request from the applicant, Lori Tamora, as a representative for the applicant, for changes and modifications to 2 of the conditions, one from the tentative tract map and one from the planned development permit. These are outlined for you here. On the tentative tract map, in the conditions, there is a description at the very front that describes the project under the applicant information and site information. They would like to revise that to add this language that includes 1 common lot. Just for clarification, they want to note that there's 85 residential lots, but also 1 common shared lot, and that lot is for the driveways, the private streets, and the common shared areas within the project site. So staff is amenable to adding that for clarification's sake. And then 1 condition in the plan development permit, condition number 60, they would like striked from that condition and deeded over to the city. This condition is a landscape district maintenance condition. It's the areas where the city maintains the project, particularly along Blosser Road and Carmen Lane, and the multi-purpose trail. That's not actually being relinquished, or I'm sorry, just Blosser Road and Carmen Lane. Those areas are not being relinquished to the city. They're just being maintained by the city, still being owned by the property. So we wanted clarification on that. Again, staff is amenable to that. The multi-purpose trail is actually being deeded over to the city, and the city will be taking ownership of that multi-purpose trail for its continued maintenance and operation. With that, that concludes staff's presentation. There was a mitigated negative declaration that was done as an environmental document for this project as well. That was included in your staff report, the document and comment letters that we did receive from various agencies, and then staff's response to those comment letters. With that, there's a resolution to adopt that mitigated negative declaration. Staff is also recommending by resolution that the Planning Commission recommends City Council approve the general plan, land use map amendment, and zone change. That will be the only item from this package that will be moving on to City Council for action. And then thirdly, to by resolution approve the tentative tract map with the map and the map conditions as revised per the discussion we just had on the description. And then also by motion to conditionally approve the PD permit with the amendment to condition number 60. The PD permit would effectively go into effect after action from the City Council on the general plan amendment and zone change. With that, that concludes staff's presentation. I'm available for any questions, and the applicant and their team is also here and available.
Go ahead, Commissioner Blanco.
Netta, so in the slides, the wall was labeled as 8 to 12 foot max, but you did say that it would be a maximum of 8 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, we placed a condition in the permit, and let me go ahead and pull that up so I can specifically reference which condition number it is. If you'd give me one moment. It's in the PD. Maybe it's in the map. in the tentative tract map conditions, if you look at condition number 7, so the tentative tract map conditions are the first or the second set with the resolution for the map.
Okay. It's number 7?
Yes,
okay.
Number 7, titled Boundary Walls,
okay.
has an A, B, and C. The A refers to the Blosser Road, and the beginning indicates that a maximum 8-foot high architecturally treated masonry or slumpstone wall with trim cap shall be constructed along Blosser Road. And then B, for Carmen Lane, limits that to a maximum 6-foot high tubular steel. And then for C, the multi-purpose trail, it limits that to a maximum of 8 feet in height, combined with the steel tubular fencing and the retaining wall.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple more questions, sorry.
You
mentioned, maybe I misheard this, but just to clarify that on Blosser, adjacent to the wall, you said there won't be any lawn. Is that correct? Is that what you were referring to? As far as landscape, I believe?
Yes. So if you, let me go to the Blosser Road. If you look at the project that's just north of this, which is the Westgate Apartments, along that parkway, and city calls this parkway, it's the common area between the street and the sidewalk. This area has lawn on it. This project won't have lawn on it. So if you look at the site plan, this shows ground cover and shrubs. The state has adopted much more stringent requirements for public landscaping for water conservation purposes, limiting that in public right-of-ways that no lawn be used with future projects, that be limited to water conserving plant material like ground covers or shrubs or grasses that are not high water demanding.
Okay, thank you. Just one more question, sorry, I had 3 of them. The trail on the west end, the 15-foot wide easement trail, was that going to be a maintained item by the development?
No, this trail now is owned by the developer. It will be deeded over to the city, so it will be handed over for ownership to the city. The Recreation and Parks Department from here on out will own and maintain this trail, much like they own and maintain the trail just north of it and various other trails in the city.
Okay. And there's no access directly from the development to the trail?
There is.
There is, okay.
There is access if you look on this site plan, and that was something that the staff did recommend and ask for of the developer, to provide this community direct access to this trail. There is a gate here where the laser pointer is that provides the Monta residents access to the trail. That's going to have a gate with a keypad allowing them in and out rights to that trail. The trail north of it, where it continues, there is no wall or gate along the Westgate Apartments portion, so they come freely in and out. The applicant wanted to only provide one access point here, which was amenable to staff.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I didn't see that in the paper site plan. Didn't look like there was access. I think it's good to have that access, so great. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a couple quick questions, Netta. On number 18 on the conditions, and this is just my own, why are we redesigning the entrance? And I thought the permeable pavers, I thought that was a standard type entrance. It's saying that the developer shall redesign the Carmen Lane entrance to remove permeable pavers from the right-of-way. The pedestrian crossing shall be concrete at the back of the dedicated public easement. I believe that's for pedestrians. The redesign shall be due at the time of the building plan submittal. I just wondered why we're doing that.
I will let David answer that. David Baez from Public Works.
Mr. Chairman, Seifert, we typically don't have pavers in the right-of-way, and that's not our, it's a maintenance issue.
What are we designing? Where's the right-of-way then?
The right-of-way is just typically right behind the sidewalk. And I think in this case, it's a little bit further back.
So is it still going to look basically like this? The pavers are just moved back a little bit?
It's just a little bit further back, yeah.
So basically same design?
More or less.
Okay. Thank you. And then if they're not going to join the landscape district on those 2 streets, but you said that the city is going to maintain those areas?
They will be joining the landscape maintenance district for this area, and the city recreation parks department will maintain these street frontages. They're just not deeding over the property to them, meaning they're not switching ownership to the city. It will still be owned by the Sara Monta Townhomes, and the city will just maintain it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Good evening, Lori Tamar with Urban Planning Concepts. Here representing Barbara Bethel and Patty Ponce, who's part of the ownership of the property. We also have Russ Garrison here, who is part of Bethel Engineering and can answer some of the grading questions that may come up. I'm going to be kind to you and let you know that Netta did a great presentation, and I don't need to repeat everything that she just said. We appreciate the clarification on the project description in the findings and in the discussion. It's real important to make sure you have the right count of lots in your project description, because you can't come back later and ask for another lot. So that's why we wanted to clarify that point, that there's actually 86 lots plus the remainder lot for the industrial portion. I think Ned has done a good job explaining all of the amenities to the project. I do want to note the one clarification, and Ned, we may need to work on this a little bit more in regards to that one point that you just made. The Blosser frontage between the curb and the wall will be part of the road right-of-way and deeded to the city. It will be fully the city's responsibility, not only for ownership, but maintenance. The Carmen frontage will have ownership to the property line, but there will be a landscaping, 10-foot landscape easement for tree planting. And so I think the confusion in the sentences of that one condition, which is both in the PD and the tentative map, was the distinction between the different frontages. Blosser frontage is completely dedicated as part of the tentative map, city ownership. Carmen Lane, which does not have a masonry wall, but will have the 10-foot landscaping easement. The bike trail is being accepted in deed and ownership to the city. So we may need to break that sentence up a little bit to identify what's happening on each frontage.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Okay. So anyways, we have spent a lot of time working on this project, not only with the Planning Commission, but with staff, engineering, Parks Department. We've gone through iterations of wordsmithing on the conditions, and so tonight you're here just focusing on a couple of cleanup items, and we want to thank staff for their patience working with us and the Planning Commission. I think we've addressed many of the items, and we look forward to Planning Commission's action tonight for a recommendation to the City Council.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have questions? Doesn't look like we...
Available for any questions.
I don't see any at this time. Thank you.
You know, I have a question of staff.
Okay.
It's staff, that's
okay,
sorry,
staff.
Lori.
Okay.
So for the Carmen Lane Blosser easement language, are you going to provide us with a slightly different? So if we start moving forward with resolutions and motions, where should we inject those?
Yes, we are working on that for you right now.
Even as we speak. Okay. And then the other question I had for staff is the shifting from M1 to the CM for the Quintron portion. I'm assuming that's not going to impact Quintron at all and what it is they do. Ryan, Netta? That's right. Either one of you. I was asking about the shifting from the M1 to the CM for Quintron. That's not going to impact Quintron at all, and what it is they're up to? And
No, it's not. It's not going to create any type of non-conforming situation.
Okay.
That business and operation would be allowed in either zoning designation.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it? Okay, we have 2 speaker slips. One is marked opposed, the other is not marked. We will take the unmarked one, Chuck Holtz. You have 3 minutes. Please come to the podium, state your name and address. Thank you.
My name is Chuck Holtz. My address is 2044 Trinity Drive. My wife and I own and live in one of the 8 houses adjacent to this project. Ours is the last one to the south on Trinity Drive. I have 5 topics that we have concerns or questions. The first topic is the change of zoning and land use for this project. When we purchased our home in 2011, we were looking for a retirement house with no 2-story house behind it. Our realtor told us with this house, it would not be a problem because the property was zoned NCCC, Neighborhood Commercial, PDCC Convenience Center. We asked if there could be apartments or condos on this property, and the answer was no. Only commercial buildings. Now 8 years later, we're not only looking at possibility of 2-story house, but a high-density resident development. I don't know what the norm is for changing the zoning. I guess my question is, with all the additional families that are added to this area over the last 18 years, why is planning now saying that there's not a need for the current zoning of neighborhood commercial in the overall plan for our community? It seems like now there would really, if you thought 18 years ago when this was planned out this way, that now it would really be a need for this. So I guess I simply don't understand that. I just go through these, and if somebody could give some answers, that would be great. Number 2, the privacy wall behind our house is shared by us and the city. I know it's going to be deeded over, but they have been taking care of that wall, so I don't know what that was. Separates our backyard from the current multi-purpose trail. This wall starts as a 9.5-foot wall at the north end and down to an 8-foot wall at our house. Our house is the only house that has an 8-foot section, about 3 feet into our neighbors. And then as the trail comes around the side of our house, there's a 6-foot wall there, and that will be across from where it can be seen our house and our property. The yard there can be seen from the new project.
These are existing walls, sir?
Yes, that's the existing wall that's there currently. For privacy reasons, we would like the developer to raise this wall a minimum of 1 additional row of blocks and possibly 3 rows across the back to match the 9-foot at the north end of the wall. We're going to have 2-story houses. The one that's going to be right behind us, there's 7 windows on the top of that. I think if we go up 1, that might be enough to take care of it, but if we go up 3, that would match towards the end of the north. It wouldn't be any higher than that. So I guess my question there is, can this be remedied? And then some quicker ones, let's see.
Yeah, we'll get.
Already answered this one, the pedestrian gate. Water drainage. my question here is, will all the rain runoff, there's going to be a lot of runoff from the roofs of all that space that used to go into the ground, and all the streets and all the sidewalks, a lot of that, it looks like it's all supposed to drain to the north. My question is, can any of that drain to the west? Because when we had a heavy rain 1 or 2 years ago, where that little park is there for the 2 to 5-year-olds, that area was getting up pretty high, and I was pretty concerned about down the road if we had a super, which we're starting to get some weird weather, could that be a problem? So I guess, is any drainage, is it possible for that going to the west and running down into that whole drainage area that goes all the way down Via Rosa there?
We have an expert in drainage here tonight, sir, that can answer that question. Yeah. What was your first question?
I have two other.
I got the wall. You wanted to raise the walls, the existing walls, but what was the
well, the first question was, why, now that we have a lot of people in our area, why now we don't need the commercial? I just don't know what that.
So your question is, why are we losing the commercial zoning?
Why are we losing the commercial and adding the high density residential?
And the second question was?
That was a privacy wall.
Okay.
Yeah, the third was the gates, but that's already been addressed, that there will be one gate coming out the side.
And the fourth
I'm glad there's no other ones other than that one gate way up by the center, the community center.
And then your fourth question was regarding the drainage?
Yes, the fourth one, the drainage.
Okay.
And then the fifth one is just the construction time frame, about how long will this whole process from start to finish, how long will it take? What are the estimated start times on it?
Okay.
I believe we can get those answered for you, sir.
Pardon?
I believe we can get those questions answered.
Okay.
Now we get the other speaker.
The other speaker.
So we have an opposed, and it looks like Penny Loden. There we go. Perfect. Got it.
Hello, I'm Penny Loudon. I live at 2020 Trinity, so I'm right in the center of the block that faces this pedestrian walkway, which in the past we've had a lot of trouble with. It doesn't really, at the end of it is a small playground at the end of our area. And when you talk about where it ends at Carmen Lane, and then she showed an extension to the Westgate Apartments, that isn't a corner. There's not a crosswalk there. It isn't like people come walking down from Westgate and continue on. It isn't a crosswalk there. So it's really not a throughaway. So far, it's just been, we've had to call the graffiti people out many, many times, and they could document. I mean, painted, spray paint on the sidewalk, my back wall. It hasn't been maintained. The vegetation, there's no vegetation behind my house, so it has been painted over. But that's, the main point I wanted to make is against the rezoning. I bought the house from Barbara Bethel. She stood in my kitchen as we were looking at that wall behind me, and I'm knowing that the empty lot was there. She promised me that's going to be commercial. I'll make it neighbor friendly. At least with some commercial, you think, okay, it's going to be the back of the building and all the activity is going to be out front toward Blosser Lane. We were told at where the Westgate Apartments are, those are going to be townhouses. Well, all the promises are being broken. Those weren't townhouses now. They're at Westgate Apartments, you know, with the density and all kinds of trouble there. Across the way, what have we become? All two-story, very high density, and now you want to put in higher density. You're going from R2 to R3. You're taking away any kind of commercial, which is more cars having to drive farther to go get services, and now R3, and our backyards are right there. All these people walking by, all the noise, 2 stories, looking down into our backyard, looking into our windows. I hope that the second story doesn't have a balcony they can walk out. We'll have no privacy whatsoever. That, from your diagrams, I haven't really been able to even see really a good perception of what that's going to be looking down at me. But all the promises that were made to us as a buyer are being broken. And obviously, it's very upsetting on our block as it is. We have traffic, we have a lot of car congestions, just like all the neighborhoods are becoming in Santa Maria. You know, my hope is there's going to be enough parking for the people here, and they're not going to be coming out of their side gates and parking on our street or trying to park on it and walking through this now gateway that's going to be right there into their area. That little common area there is butting right up into the apartment, our homes right there. And how much noise is that going to be?
Thank you for being here tonight. That ends our speaker slips. Is there any rebuttals? Is there some those things you can address, please, Lori?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate the concerns of the neighbors, and things do change. And one of the changes that occurred through the Planning Commission and through the last couple of years is that the property behind or along Betaravia and the police station, that whole stretch has been zoned to general commercial. And so the ability for a small neighborhood center to be successful in competing with potentially a larger commercial center has really affected the ability to get tenants to even sign up for something like this. The same thing is happening on the vacant lot over by Villa del Sol. These 5-10-acre commercial sites are just not able to compete with a big commercial center. So the question is, do you leave the property vacant and wait and see what happens with the Betaravia commercial development, or do you come up with something that will provide a upper end townhome project that would be a benefit to the community versus a vacant lot? And so I think some of the concerns or comments that you made here today are things that we can look at with city staff. As you can tell, they don't like walls that are more than 8 feet high, so we'd have to work with them on that. The improvements along the bike trail, I think you'll see some added landscaping. There's requirements for trees to be planted along the bike trail area for, providing shade as well as separation to the neighborhood adjacent to it. And the project is designed to take all of the drainage to the north and to the, I don't know if you can, there's 3 areas that are required to hold the water. So there's requirements for all of that to move to the north to catch in with the city drainage system that takes it out to the A Street Basin. So it would be, I can't say it will never drain that direction, but it's designed for it to go to the north. Construction time frame. Once a project's approved, we still have to go to the city council. It usually takes about 6 months for a map to go through the hearing process or through the map recordization, design, plan checks before a map is recorded. And then you'd start doing site construction work. And usually a project of this size, you could probably see about a year of construction between the grading, site work, building, and that's the standard construction time frame. So if optimistically in 18 months there would be, a completed project out there. That's optimistic. So it could be anywhere in between. So I can, again, appreciate the concerns about why is this happening. Barbara has tried everything possible. As a matter of fact, she's designed several commercial projects in the past, and all of them ended up not getting any interest of tenants. And so this is a solution for this site. I hope that helped answer some of the questions. And
do you think that the owner would be willing to help these people with their wall heights and doing some work on the improvement on the other side of that trail?
I think we would be very glad to meet with you, look at it. Russ Garrison here is the civil engineer. I think he actually worked on the original subdivision. So, you know, we would be glad to meet with you and look at both sides of the wall, and then we'll work with the Parks Department and see what we can do. Yeah, get you.
Yeah, we'll make sure all that. And there is a state requirement. The water can't leave the site, isn't that right, Russ? I mean, nowadays the water has to be contained on the site. There are very strict requirements, and the days of water leaving and going where it's not supposed to, it's just not allowed anymore.
I hope I've answered your questions, and I think the one other point in regards to graffiti and maintenance, I think sometimes it helps to have eyes on the trail, and having that neighborhood right there, the homeowners association, I think you'll see less of the vandalism and things that you've experienced out there, because it'll be more open and there'll be people experiencing the trail more from this neighborhood. And like I say, eyes on anything helps reduce vandalism.
Lori, are there two-story balconies on that side?
There are no two-story balconies on that side.
Okay.
The balconies are in the individual courtyards.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope that helped answer some of the questions.
It did. Thank you. At this point, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for a discussion or a motion. Commissioners?
Well, we discussed this project at length at study session. I think it's a nice project. I like the design. I would like to commend Ms. Tamura for listening to what the Planning Commission, the comments we provided to you and to the applicant at the study session, and how that changed the project. So I think it's a nice project. I think it was nicely designed.
Commissioner Dickerson?
I agree with Commissioner Hernandez, and also I would like to commend Lori for listening to what we had to say, making some changes. It's a good-looking project. I do feel for the previous homeowners who've purchased, and but I also recognize that if certain land doesn't pencil out one way or the other, then the question is, you know, what are you going to do with it? In this case, I think that this kind of nice community is being put together, and I'm hopeful that it will not have too much of an impact on you guys. So, any case, I think it's a good project.
Commissioners, Mr. Blanco.
Excuse me. I also think it's a nice project. It looks really good. I think the parking, situation is certainly a lot better here. I don't see that impacting the off-site streets. I do sympathize a little bit with the adjacent residents in terms of their, the buildings that are going to be, basically looking over potentially into their homes. I would offer, if there's an opportunity to mitigate that a little bit with any kind of fencing, or maybe the site doesn't need to be quite as high as it needs to be. I know, Russ, I'm sure you've looked at the grading closely, but if there was an opportunity to drop the grading and lessen that differential in height and maybe lessen the view shed impacts to the adjacent residents, I think that would be a very good thing. I think it could be accomplished, but I think it's warranted at least a review and final design, and taking a look at see if there's an opportunity there. I don't know the flooding situation and the drainage in detail, but if there was an opportunity to do that with the separation that the 15-foot easement provides and the setbacks of the buildings and the differential, if we can lower the site a little bit, maybe we can accomplish a little bit less impact in terms of the views and the privacy issues. So I would encourage the applicant and the designer to look at that a little bit. I think that would be well worth the time. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lopez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I like the project. There's a tremendous need for housing here in the city. What I wanted to ask is, are these going to be rentals or are these going to be for sale?
The intent, because we're doing a map, is for sale. They could be rentals, but they're planning for sale because, we're setting up a homeowners association, we're setting up the map for individual lots for sale.
Okay, thank you.
And just to carry that forward, if you have too many rentals, then it starts becoming a problem with financing for, for condominiums. So it's a mix, but it's being designed as a townhome. They will own their lot, and the map will be recorded and the homeowners association will be created.
Okay, and the reason I ask is I know, was it Refugio down there on Professional Parkway? That's all rental, and that was, I think it was a townhome project at one point? Okay, but yeah, there's a tremendous need for housing. I like the design. It's RRM did a great job in the design of the property. One of the concerns that I had was the height of the periphery, the fencing, or at least the block walls, and I think with those requirements of not exceeding those heights, 8-foot max. What I didn't understand was, is that on the project side or is that on the public side? That's what I didn't know.
It's on the Blosser Road side.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And if I may just, pardon me, Chair. If you remember the presentation we made at the study session, the southern half of that frontage of Blosser Road is almost at grade with the other side when they engineer it. It's as we start getting to the northern midsection, there is some grade differential that will be reflected in either building up the sidewalk a little bit, or just having the 8-foot wall and eating the differential on the inside.
Yeah.
Most of it's at grade.
Okay. Yeah, because my concern was not going down a tunnel on Blosser.
Correct.
Yeah. So, but I do like the project, and I look forward to seeing it built. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do like this project. Barbara came and worked with us, and Lori's done a great job of working with staff. Staff's done a great job of working back. It is a good-looking project. I am very happy to hear that it's private ownership. I think that will help you guys tremendously. Your concern about the apartments, ownership brings a different element to the housing. And I think that it'll probably be a big help rather than an apartment complex. I think she's done a pretty good job with the parking. We looked at this at a different session, and I don't believe you're going to be having people coming in and parking on your streets. We don't approve of that, and so we did go over some parking with her, and I think she has a pretty good plan on that. The overall buildings, the architecture, the landscaping, it looks like it's going to be it's not going to be a blight to your neighborhood. It's going to be at least as good or better than what's there as far as property values. I do feel for you as far as having that open lot all these years, and now it's going to be construction, and there's going to be tractors and dirt and dust and noise for quite a while. So I do feel for you for that, but I do tend to lean towards approving this project. So that's Commissioner Lopez.
And this does go on to the city council. We don't have the final say on this.
Yes.
So just so the residents know that.
Yeah. So this is our we're gonna recommend only to the city council, and then you'll have another opportunity to come to a city council meeting and talk to the city council and the mayor. So at this time, I'm going to call for a motion.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that the Planning Commission, by resolution number 2766.
If I could jump in,
yes,
because there was still resolution about the condition that needed to be made.
And there was some stuff that the owner's going to do for some other residences. How would we do that? Yes.
So to be included in the motion that you're going to make for motion number 3 and 4, we did based on Lori Tamora's discussion about clarification for the ownership of the Blosser Road frontage versus the easements on Carmen Lane and ownership on the multi-purpose trail. We did further revise condition number 60, and I'm looking to you for agreement on this new language.
I'm sorry, which condition number?
16. So
16.
We are looking for the plan development permit condition 60 and then the tentative tract map condition number 47. Both read the same right now in terms of landscape district. And we are going to modify that to state that the project shall be incorporated into the maintenance district that is in that area. The Southwest Landscape Maintenance District and the Westgate Ranch Special Benefit Zone, and maintained as outlined below. So the area between between Blosser Road and the subdivision wall shall be deeded over to and maintained by the City of Santa Maria. The Carmen Lane frontage shall have a 10-foot street tree easement area for street tree planting maintained by the City of Santa Maria, and the 15-foot multi-purpose trail shall be deeded over to and maintained by the City of Santa Maria. Does that look good to you, Lori? Okay.
And that would be item number 3 and 4?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. That's it?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a quick question. So, Lori, the concessions that we're talking about with the neighbors, that's not part of this? That's something you're going to do privately? Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Continuing, by resolution number 2766, that we adopt the mitigated negative declaration for Sara Monta Townhomes.
Do I have a roll call?
No, we need a second.
We have a second. Do we have a roll call?
Yes, that was me.
Maribel.
Commissioner Dickerson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Blanco.
Aye.
Chair Seifert.
Aye.
I move by resolution number 2767 that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council approve General Plan Map, Land Use Map Amendment and Zone Change GPZ 2018-0003.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Dickerson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Aye.
Commissioner Blanco.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Chair Seifert.
Aye.
And that the Planning Commission, by resolution number 2768, approve the tentative parcel map TR 2018-0002 with the modified text as discussed, plus the additional easement text for numbers 60 and number 47.
Second.
The additional modification?
Effective once.
Effective
once the City Council approves.
Okay, effective once the City Council approves. Yes?
And the rest, and the appeal periods.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, number 3?
We're on number 3.
We're on number 3, Phil, right?
Yes.
By resolution approved, parcel number.
That's all it says.
That's all it says.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all it says on mine.
No.
Staff report was more detailed, I'm sorry.
Oh, I see, okay.
Here you go. It's this one.
And it's on the screen.
I see. And the project satisfies all requirements appeal and requires appeal periods.
I don't have that either.
There we go.
Can we have a roll? Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Dickerson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Aye.
Commissioner Blanco.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Chair Seifert.
Aye. Do I hear a motion for number 4?
Right, and by motion that the Planning Commission conditionally approve Plan Development Permit PD 2018-0012, effective once City Council approves GPZ 2018-003, and the project satisfies all required appeal periods with the addition of the modified text as described, plus the modification to number 60 and 47.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you guys for coming tonight.
Yeah, normally they go till about 11:30, so we're doing fine. In the morning. Yeah, that's right.
They bring us pizza.
Oh, yeah? Somewhere around 4 a.m.
Coffee maker.
And we have other business on the agenda as well.
We do have more business. I was letting the room clear and letting the line clear.
Close the door.
Yeah, they're good. Okay, so at this time, we're going to have an election of new officers for the 2019 calendar year. I don't remember how to do it, so I'm guessing that we're going to have a...
I nominate for the first, Commissioner Dickerson as chairperson.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, yeah, that passes. Do we have a vice chair?
I would like to nominate Commissioner Lopez for vice chair.
Second.
Hang on, you good with that? Good, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
You're in. Subdivision committee member.
Is there someone who wants to volunteer for that?
I'll volunteer for that.
Oh, I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I didn't think you'd pass that one.
Everyone steps back.
Pretty much.
And how about a volunteer for the downtown revitalization?
Who is doing that?
I was, but I think somebody else would like to.
Yeah, you're chair. You need to. You're doing plenty.
For
When are the meetings?
thought for continuity because you were interested in that project.
No, but I think no. But you said you would like to.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Lopez to the Downtown Revitalization Committee member.
I second.
Do you have time to do this?
I'll do it.
You do it?
Or did you want?
I'll do it.
No.
That's fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're in.
How often?
Huh?
You haven't had one probably.
It doesn't matter. You're in.
Twice.
It's infrequently.
I was trying to ask.
Yeah, it's twice. It's every other week that we don't do a study session.
You expressed
Yeah.
interest.
You should
Yeah, smart move is to stay silent on that.
Mr. Chairman, just real quick, isn't there an alternate for the subdivision committee meeting?
Oh.
The subdivision committee? I always thought there was an alternate. No?
I didn't have an alternate when I did.
I'll just go down my bad days and
Number 7, Mr. Seifert.
We got one more?
Yep, number 7. Oral reports.
Oh, this is where Do we have any oral reports from the commissioners? Or from staff?
Just to make you all aware, there's a big project we're working on right now, the update of our general plan for the city, and I just want to let you know that the proposal period has closed and we'd received 3 proposals, so we're reviewing those, and we're going to be doing interviews of the consultant teams in April. So just to make you aware that's moving forward. I want to point out that the next public hearing, as it's listed on the agenda, is incorrect. It says April 17th. The next one is April 3rd. So we have several items. It's going to be April 3rd. And we have multiple items on that agenda. So that is what I had for you.
Wonderful. Commissioner Lopez.
Yes, real quick. We always hear about the branding of things and we can't change the logos and we can't do this and that. But if you ever drive to Los Angeles and you're there in Thousand Oaks or Westlake, they have a mall that everybody has the same brown colored sign. Target included. Right. So it is, but everybody always says that. You can't, this is our brand, this is... Anyway, my question was, does it hold water?
Commissioner Seifert, members of the commission, Commissioner Lopez, yes, there's a case that says that a city cannot require a brand to change or like color change. It was a Blockbuster video case. I guess it's ironic that they didn't last anyway, but it was a federal case, I believe. So that does hold water, but it could be a situation where if it's like a mall and under some kind of ownership. And, well, if you want to come here, you're going to have to change your corporate logo because that's our rules. If you're seeking an entitlement and you have the right to the property and then the government's saying you have to change it, you can't do that.
But what about someplace like Santa Fe where you go there and it seems like everything is very much the same look? Santa Fe, New Mexico, I mean, it's just...
Is that in California?
No, it's outside of California.
Just checking.
All right, so different
I'm
states
only a
have
member
different
of the
things.
bar in California.
All right.
Mr. Cinco is not barred in that
Yes.
state.
I haven't been barred yet.
He's been barred from that state. That's right. He's not barred in that state from it.
I have one brief update for you. The CVS parking lot with the UCL cars case was closed.
It's way better.
Yeah, it's
No,
done.
I drove by there, and the tire store is actually under construction. I almost drove by Madison Toyota the other day, but I didn't.
Yeah. That one's not yet done yet.
That's not. I have been. No, not yet. That's it?
Never wanted to do that.
No, they didn't.
I'd
No, they did not.
like to thank the person who gave us the new binders.
Hey, yes. That's right. Commissioner Blanco, you were in a golden age of new binders. Are we adjourned?
One more thing to do. So my final act as chair, we're adjourned.
We're adjourned. Nice.